Hey, how are you? I'm Slice of Otaku, and the third installment of our Steven Universe Heart of the Crystal Gems event, The Question, was pretty eventful. Yet again, we pick up where the last episode left off and see Ruby with Greg. Now, once I saw how Amethyst was drawn in this scene, I realized that this was an episode storyboarded by Jeff Liu, one of the few storyboarders whose name I remember and look out for. Turns out the storyboarding pair that handled this episode also took care of Can't Go Back, the super pretty Lapis anime-like episode. But yeah, Ruby told Greg about the Pink Diamond revelation, which, mind you, considering she wasn't present for the Pearl flashback, has to be a bit bare bones and lacking some proper context. But of course, as many of us came to expect, Greg wasn't bothered all that much, saying that she didn't tell him that she was Pink Diamond like he didn't tell her that he was Gregory DeMayo. And with that, I want to ask you all a question. Would you be okay with your significant other never revealing anything about their past to you and vice versa? I know Greg told Rose she didn't need to tell him anything about the past, but I kinda see that as him not wanting her to bring up any traumatic events for his sake, considering she was a war veteran. But why keep his past a secret as well? Was he so ashamed of it that he feared how she'd perceive him or take it? And if so, does that challenge their love at all? For me, like Greg, I wouldn't want to trigger any trauma from the past, so I'd avoid things like that. But at the same time, if I love someone to that degree, I want to know as much about them as I possibly can. Also, I really appreciate Ruby shouting me out in this episode, so thank you to the crew for that. Anyways, after talking it out with Greg, Ruby has apparently done a lot of self-assessment and recognized some truth in Sapphire's words as she brings up a valid point. Due to the way in which homeworld collectivism works, gems tend to be grouped up immediately, removing any and all sense of individualism. You have pearls and their owners, topaz gems, rubies, amethysts, the diamonds. Even Peridot mentions her fellow kindergartners back home at one point. And so Ruby is just enjoying her freedom a bit. And oh man, did I enjoy every time that she did a flip in this episode. And whereas everyone else is willing to accept Ruby's declaration of independence, Steven is bent out of shape over the possibility of never having Garnet again. So much so that he considers forcing them back together. But luckily, Greg is there to counsel him and let him know that that's not their call to make. That technically, if this is what Ruby wants, then by extension, it's what Garnet wants. But yeah, Ruby decides to mirror a comic featuring a cowboy, fulfilling Sapphire's Future Vision prediction. And man, do Rubies jump around a lot, always with the gymnastics. Now, Ruby's cowboy attire is pretty neat, but Amethyst's horse transformation sequence was really dope, and with things like that, a lot of the animation in this episode feels like a subtle flex, and I'm all for it. Now, when they end up by some bushes, Ruby is excited to experience something without the crutch of Future Vision to take away the surprise, and ends up just leaping headfirst into danger. And for me, this was just a reminder as to how well Ruby and Sapphire complement one another and compensate for each other's weaknesses. And look, I didn't really expect it, but the Ruby Rider song is low-key a banger. I really liked it. This old Ruby Rider, it's Ruby riding alone. But side note, I remember a bunch of people were going around saying that Taylor Swift was supposed to voice a character in Steven Universe or something, so it was pretty cool to see her cameo in this one for a bit, even if it was only for a few seconds. But yeah, after the song is done, everyone is just sleeping out, and I only really thought about this after watching the episode for a second time, but is it weird how Amethyst and Greg are kinda sleeping together here? Like, Amethyst is super in character here, which is a bit odd considering she couldn't maintain her humanoid Jasper shapeshift for what may be presumed to be a shorter duration than this whole horse thing, but whatever. I'm just asking if this situation is weird given the prior tension between them. Honestly, it's nothing, but I found it interesting nonetheless. But back to the real stuff, Steven apologizes to Ruby for wanting to force Garnet back together, and goes on to say how much being a cowboy suits her, as he's never seen her have so much fun. To which she exclaims that it's a lie. Although she had fun, there was a bit of an emptiness without Sapphire. The happiness Sapphire felt made her happy, so to have that removed just feels wrong. And Ruby is really frustrated over this because thinking about Sapphire kinda defeats the purpose of her leaving, and it's just adorable. But ultimately, Ruby decides that she wants to be with Sapphire, but also not just go back to where they were before, but take it to the next level, which prompts an idea from Steven, which brings us to this cute sequence of events, which will have the fandom screaming for weeks to come. Ruby pulls up all rough and tough and gets down on one knee and pops the question. And man, after Sapphire said yes and says, "I've been waiting to kiss your cute face," I lost it because that's something that I could see my girlfriend saying, and it just floored me when I was watching. What an incredible episode. This show is so progressive and I love it. Absolutely everything about that wedding episode is about to be monumental and I am so ready for it. I know a lot of you in the last video were asking for me to cover this one, which I told you I'm gonna cover every episode, but I wanna know what you guys think about this one and Cowboy Ruby. Leave me all your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.